Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. Chelsea have already made one big signing in this summer transfer window, taking Raheem Sterling from champions Manchester City. The West London Blues have also loaned their record signing, Romelu Lukaku, back to Inter Milan. In the case of Lukaku, Chelsea boss Thomas Tuchel says he's saddened he didn't get the best out of the Belgian last season. There was never a meeting where I said, I want this guy out. Never. I was always clear, if he stays, we will do everything to put him in a better place, to put him in better shape, to improve my style of coaching, our style of playing, to make him a better fit. Romelu made it very clear he wanted to leave, and the owners took the decision to make the decision straight away. I am not happy that we couldn't bring more out of him. Maybe it would have just taken a bit more time, a bit more fitness, a bit more adaptation in our game. Who knows? But we will not find out. Once Romelu gave his clear opinion on the situation and there was a solution on the table, the owners made their choice and had my blessing. Tuchel says he wished things have been better with Lukaku. But George, how often do you see it working out for players returning to a former club?
It's a good question, because it is not often that players return to their old stomping ground and achieve success. I'm thinking about it now, and I can think of Teddy Sheringham, who had left Spurs to go to Manchester United, left United, went to a few places, went back to Spurs, and Spurs aren't a trophy-winning machine, but he played well enough to warrant a place in the team. Most times, the players go back to a club and they struggle to recreate the magic. So it's always a bad sign, which is why the jury will be out on Paul Pogba going back to Juventus from Manchester United. And the Lukaku point, which I'm not straying from, gives me the chance to say that people must acknowledge Serie A is distinctly weaker than the EPL. So if he goes back and does well for Juventus in Serie A, it doesn't mean he's a great footballer who Manchester United should have kept. It just means that he's doing well in a weaker league. But for him, the situation is the same with Lukaku. You go back somewhere, you never quite hit the same heights, and I fret what the big Belgian will do in the Italian city.
Lance, what do you make of, one, I think it's very big that Thomas Tuchel, gave his 2 cents on the situation and whatnot. And of course, your take on Lukaku going back.
Well, I agree with George. I think he has a good chance of doing better in the Serie A than he did in England. He did do well in England before he had left the first time. So it's disappointing for him that his latest stint in the EPL wasn't as good as it needed to be. Of course, there was a fractious relationship between himself and Tuchel, because he had, gone behind the coach's back and, criticized how he was being used and so on. And that's a recipe for disaster. So he brought a lot of that problem on himself.
Yeah.
Another point to make, Mariah, is that if you look at the history of players moving clubs, usually, there are 2 things that are very important to consider in the discussion. Usually, elite players still in the prime of their careers don't usually make the move that Pogba and Lukaku are making. Usually, a man goes back to a club approaching the twilight of his career or in the twilight. So it's then difficult to reignite the spark. Lukaku is still very much at the top of his game physically and otherwise. He's still an elite player.
Yeah.
Paul Pogba is still an elite player, as he does for France. So these 2 could buck the trend, which is well established, of players not recreating the magic when they return to clubs, because they are in the prime of their careers just the same. So it gives them every chance of taking another step forward in their own progression and play.
Right, and as we continue our football transfer discussion, we're moving on now to Raheem Sterling. He has, put on the Chelsea shirt. So my question to you first, I'll turn it first to Lance this time. How does Raheem Sterling, assist or improve Chelsea's attack?
Well, Raheem Sterling has a few skills that will benefit Chelsea. He has good dribbling skills. He has extremely good pace. And whenever you're as quick as Raheem Sterling is, you will present a problem for opposing defenders. Offensively, Chelsea on their roster appear to have a lot of players who are good quality, but they haven't delivered up to this point for Coach Tuchel. So I think Sterling Sterling's additional pace and dribbling skills will offer an extra dimension to Chelsea's offensive game, and I think he will do well there.
George, Sterling, Tuchel.
It's a good fit on paper. If you look at the Chelsea attackers, Hakim Ziyech is wide, cutting in. Mason Mount is central, very good player. I've spoken highly of Mason Mount in the past. He will never be as prolific as Sterling has proven himself to be in the past. Timo Werner works harder than every footballer in the Premier League, but he doesn't know how to finish chances. Yeah, Kai Havertz is an exceptionally gifted player, a man who can play centre forward, can play withdrawn striker. Sterling is unique for this fact. He has scored in his career 109 Premier League goals. That is his reference. That is his marker. Anybody doubts Raheem Sterling's quality, just need to look at that statistic and look at where he lies on the list of highest goal scorers in the Premier League, which is 30 years old. Sterling is in the top 25 goal scorers of all time, right? So what that means is that his goal scoring record means, and he has a good fitness record as well. The boy is a fit boy naturally. If he plays games, he will score goals. Chelsea's problem is not opening up defenses. Manchester United's problem over past years has been opening up defenses. Chelsea's problem is not that. Chelsea's problem is the conversion of chances. Their expected goals ratio based on how they play is very high, but the actual goals very low because Werner keeps missing them and Kai Havertz is overburdened. So Raheem Sterling gives Thomas Tuchel the guarantee of goals, especially as in the Chelsea team, unlike City, he'll be guaranteed of his game week in, week out, and he won't have to fret, unlike at City, that, oh, I played a bad game today, I may not start tomorrow. That concern won't be there. So I expect him to thrive in the colours of the darker blues.
Yeah, looking forward to see how he does. Well, Manchester United, they announced their second signing of the window, Danish international Christian Eriksen, on a fee transfer. Lance, is Eriksen good enough to improve Manchester United?
You know, that's a good question because of the life scare that he had while playing a football match. You know, there's just something in my mind constantly working about his heart and his medical fitness for the top flight in England. Having said that, there's no question about his ability. He's a very, very, very fine player. And my only concern is the load that he will face because Manchester United's efforts to resuscitate the great club is a burden for everyone. And obviously they'll have to share the burden. It's not on Christian Eriksen himself. But he's a high quality player. I just don't know how much he has to offer at this stage of his career. But he is an option that will add some variety to the new coach Ten Hag and what he wants to do, and my eyes are open for this one. I'm not thrilled, you know, but I have my mind open as to seeing him do well there.
Manchester United, George, not any flamboyant signings, not too many flashy signings and whatnot. What do you make of this move to sign Christian Eriksen, giving him a second chance?
I'm not enamored by it. I don't want to come across as lazy in the descriptor that I'll use to describe Eriksen because it is a cliche, but not one of those that is commonly used. But the best way to describe Christian Eriksen is a player who will decorate a game, but he won't dominate a game.
Yeah.
Manchester United need midfielders who can dominate a game. Manchester United is used to having midfielders who dominate games and dominate games against the big teams. Ask me the question. Will Christian Eriksen, if he plays for Manchester United against Chelsea over the course of the 90 minutes, be the best player on the field? No. But he may have a moment in the same way that Paul Pogba never dominated games for Manchester United, but he would decorate some games. Christian Eriksen, the length of his career, and this is why people will forget. When Christian Eriksen was at Tottenham Hotspur, when he came to the Premier League from Ajax, Sir Alex Ferguson had him scouted extensively. And this was one of the reasons Sir Alex didn't move to sign him. Arsene Wenger also scouted him for Arsenal because they felt that, yeah, a good player, but when it mattered most, he would be peripheral. And if you look at his record for Spurs, a fine record for Spurs, because remember, if Spurs come fourth in the English Premier League, they do well. Yeah. Manchester United come fourth, they are rubbish. That's the standard, it's a different thing. Eriksen will, for against the middling to weaker teams, he'll have days when he runs the show and you look at him and wonder, oh my God, am I not watching the best midfielder in the world? But in the big head-to-head clashes, the North London derbies, the Chelsea game away in West London, the Man City game, the Liverpool game, the Manchester United game, it is hardly likely that Christian Eriksen will be the best player on the field. And for Manchester United to get where they need to go, you have to have a player with that capacity. He doesn't have that capacity, didn't before. I don't expect him to develop that capacity now.
Yeah. Well, continuing now, Leeds United's Brazilian winger Rafinha has turned down Chelsea to sign for Barcelona. George, how can Barcelona afford to buy Rafinha for 60 million euros with them more than €1 billion in debt?
Creative accounting. Go on.
Not that this was the same club that was forced to release Lionel Messi due to financial problems. So you give up Messi, you find money to bring in Rafinha.
Yeah, they've done some big deals, credit to them, which have interfered with the Puritan way in which the club has been run over time. I say Puritan because unlike other clubs who are leveraged in sponsorship money up to their eyeballs, Barcelona has kept some things sacrosanct. Barcelona, of course, is a club owned by the fans. And there was a long time, for much of their history, there was no sponsor on the Barcelona shirt because they're Catalan. But because of financial issues, they've had to do that. Now, they've sold TV rights or sold forward TV rights, so they've freed up space. But still, the debts of the club are so bad that they need to clear cap space, clear wage space for players to come in. So they're banking on the business that they've done already this season, the business that they're doing internally to get players who are on the books to take further wage cuts, and the selling of some players to create cap space to be able to pay capital expenditure, pay for the purchase of Rafinha, which of course they can't afford to pay one time or so if Leeds were to say, look, we'll sell him to you, but we want to see 60 million euros in the bank. No, Barcelona can't afford to do that. It's going to be a deal that is arranged to be paid, amortized over a particular period. So I'm just saying that there's a lot of creativity in the accounting, not of the bad kind, because sometimes creative accounting suggests fraud is nearby. Not
that's
that.
the first thing I thought.
But, you know, they have to be very, very creative in how they let go players, create cap space, and pay 60 million. They may have to ask Lance for a loan.
Down payment and installments. Nancy can pay that out. Easy.
Keep talking.
Cash. Fresh cash.
Keep talking.
All right. We're going to take
So the long and short of it is that the De Jong transfer needs to happen. He doesn't want to go. I think Manchester United should take the sign that the player doesn't want to come. Leave him to sit on the bench or sit in the stands for Barcelona and enjoy the city because he says he loves the city.
Is Rafinha Barcelona ability though? And he spent some time in Portugal, played briefly in France, and has looked okay for Leeds. But given Barcelona's requirements now to bring the club back to where we know it had been, is Rafinha the answer?
But the thing is, I don't get the sense that Barcelona is the Barcelona that we would talk about. For me, it's a club that's rebuilding. That's a fact.
I'm just saying that they want to get there.
Right. No, well then he's not the answer, but I still get that it's in keeping with the Barcelona that they have right now. This young team that they're building on and trying to create to get back to that level.
The question Lance asked, you know, the Barcelona fans, the diehards who know the club over the years, this doesn't look...
No, he's not a star.
You don't pay... So you're paying 60 million euros for someone who's not a star? You're breaking the bank.
Yes.
You are in debt up to your eyeballs.
George,
and you're going to do it. And perhaps
now.
That's what you're saying. So the club is not being run properly. Yeah. But Rafinha, as a talent to go to Barcelona, I won't say he'll fail. But from what we've seen, he'll have to improve. Based on what he showed at Leeds and how consistent he was against the big teams, he needs to improve significantly to get there.
The Brazil label helps him, though.
It does, because they have a very good record with Brazilian players. Yeah.
All right, well, we'll have to keep a close eye on that one. On that note, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.